Hello.
Good afternoon, is that Faye?
Yes, it is.
Hello Faye, it's Rob McGIBBon from the Daily Mail.
Yes, hello.
How are you?
All right.
Jolly good. Thank you very much indeed for doing this interview.
Not at all.
Did you have a chance to have a look at the questions?
I have looked at the questions.
Brilliant. Would you like to go straight in?
We might as well go straight in.
Okay, lovely. Starting with the prized possession you value above all others?
Well, I think it's a copy of a book called Ferdinand the Bull, which was given to me when I was 5 by my father, who I didn't see a great deal of. But with his sort of handwriting in the beginning, and one just sort of keep it with me. And it was a book about, and I was in New Zealand at the time, and this was a book that came from Europe and was about Spain.
Right.
And the Spanish Bull, and it sort of gave one a vision of another world somewhere.
Right, I'm with you. And did your father used to read that to you?
And I can't remember him ever. Yes, no, he did.
Yeah.
He did. Yes.
And it's inscribed to him?
And it's inscribed to me from him, and it says 1936, which is a long time ago.
Yeah. Was it for your birthday or something?
Probably.
Yeah. Great. And you said it's about a bull in Spain. Is it an adventure?
Ferdinand the Bull. It was passing. It was a very gentle bull, but a bee sat on a bee and leapt in the air just when the selectors for the bull fights were passing by.
Right.
So they all thought he was a very fierce bull. But when they put him in the ring, he just sat down and smelled the flowers in the hair, in the lady's hair.
Right.
So it was a book. So it was an anti-war book, probably.
I see. And
being in 1936.
Yes, indeed. And does it remind you of your father?
And it reminds me of my father. Yes, right. And of another of being a child.
Yeah.
In New Zealand and
which is where you were born, yeah?
I was actually born in England, but went out when I was a baby.
Ah, yes, sorry. Excellent. So you still got that from 1936?
I still got that, yes. It's the one possession I still have from my childhood.
Is it really the only one?
It's the only one. Because we left New Zealand when I was 15 and came to England with only a trunk with all our possessions in it.
Right.
We didn't have anything.
So you clung on to that book, did you?
Was left over. That and a doll, which I did have for quite recently, but I've lost that now.
Oh, I see. Maybe that's your lost item, is it, for later?
I think that's my lost item.
Oh, okay, lovely. That's a really lovely first answer, Faye. And how about the next one, the biggest regret you wish you could amend?
Well, I think when I was 11, I chose to join the netball team rather than the hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sort of influenced what happened in one's life after that, because the class was always divided into kind of the tall, glamorous netball-playing girls and the kind of, the fast-running, plainer, more vicious hockey-playing girls.
So you joined netball?
No, I joined hockey, and I should have joined netball.
Right, so you regret not joining...
Somehow one's life was spent with the indignant children rather than the successful children.
Right.
And that sort of oddly follows you up all the way through school.
Really?
Yes. Well, this was my impression a long time ago.
Yes.
But anyway, that's it. And it's the only sort of choice I can remember ever having made, because, as a child, you're not given much choice.
Yes.
And as an adult, as a girl, and as a woman, when I was growing up, there was very little choice. You had one choice. You didn't choose your careers. You didn't choose your subjects.
Yeah.
You did what you were expected to do.
So
the one choice it's only the one choice that I remember actually making as a sort of actual decision and having to decide: am I going to play netball? Am I going to play hockey?
So can you say that again to me? What does hockey mean compared to netball?
Well, netball was what the smart, successful, skinny girls did. And playing hockey was what the more brutish, what the more violent and brutish and angry girls did.
Okay, so you wanted to be in the other set,
So I
really?
wanted to be in. Yes, I thought I ought to have been in the other set. And anyway, I think I was much better at netball than I was at hockey.
Right.
With hockey, you had to run and run and run and whack other people's ankles.
Right, okay, brilliant. How about the way you'd spend your fancy 24 hours?
Well, my fantasy 24 hours. So I think I'd have breakfast at the Hotel Continental in Oslo.
Oslo, yep.
Well, it's got a marvelous hotel, and it has this excellent breakfast bar. And breakfast in hotels always seems to me to be the best part of hotels.
Is it like a buffet bar?
And a sort of buffet bar, and you can choose anything you want from an amazing selection.
And what would you have?
And I would have, well, I think I would probably have the figs, and then I would have scrambled egg, and then I would have a croissant, and I'd have a lot of very strong coffee, and a lot of freshly squeezed orange, and it would just be sort of breakfast as one would get anywhere, but all the food and all the food would be, I mean, the bread would be incredibly fresh, and the butter would be incredibly good, and enormous quantities of it.
Yes.
And you would probably have, mango. Actually, you'd probably have mango.
Okay, great. And would you be with Nick on this morning?
Oh yes, I would think so.
Okay. And after the Hotel Continental?
And after that, I would be shopping for sheets and Liberties.
Right.
Which has a wonderful, or did have last time I was there. Things changed a lot. Which has a wonderful sort of bedding department.
Yep.
Where they do sort of, extremely expensive designer, high quality sheets of the kind which will last you for decades.
Right.
And I really like that kind of shopping.
So would you be able to spend what you like on this fancy day?
Yes,
just buy the best,
you wouldn't be worrying about money at all. It would be like playing The Sims, which is dolls' houses.
I see.
In which you would give yourself, which is a computer game.
Yeah.
And you would give yourself unlimited sums of money. So even having cheated and got all the money, you then wouldn't have to worry about it.
Okay, great. And from Liberties?
And then I'd go to Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yep.
Well, which has an amazing lingerie department.
What type of department, sorry?
Lingerie, lingerie.
Oh, lingerie,
knickers, bras, things like that.
Yes.
Which has an amazing selection of extremely expensive and delicate and fancy things.
Yes.
And then.
So you'd buy the best lingerie as well, yeah?
Yes, I would. But I'd do that at Saks Fifth Avenue, which is just a really nice place to be.
Okay.
Liberties is sort of, Liberties has the old-fashioned air.
Yes.
Of solid quality, but Saks Fifth Avenue is all sort of flimsy fashion and bright lights and glass and
wonderful.
Stuff. And then I think I'd spend the afternoon in Rome in a chauffeur-driven car, driving through the Roman ruins, which is terrible to do by foot. But if you have a chauffeur, it gets really nice.
What sort of car would you be chauffeur-driven in?
I would be, it would probably, where would I be? I'd be in Italy, so it would probably be a Mercedes, because everybody, buys Mercedes.
Okay, great. So you just go see the sights of Rome, the ruins,
So I'd go and see the sights of Rome, but in a car, so I didn't have to do it by foot, which is very tiring.
Yes. Where would you have lunch, by the way?
Oh, where would I have lunch?
Yes.
God, I'm going to be a bit full of food, aren't I? Well, I think actually I'd probably go and have lunch in the Ivy.
The Ivy in London,
in London.
Great. What's your favourite there?
Well, my favourite in nearly all restaurants is fish and chips, because they always cook them very well. And though you always, when you see other people's plates of food, you always regret that you didn't buy that. But actually, if you have the fish and chips, you're usually quite satisfied.
Yes. Okay. Great. And do you drink? Will you have a glass of wine?
And I'd have a Bloody Mary, or I'd have a vodka. I'd have a vodka martini.
Okay, great. So we're back to Rome after the ruins.
After the ruins,
yep.
There's Rome. and then I'd go for a walk in the evening when the sun was setting in Renville in the west of Ireland, and it's an amazing sort of magic place.
Yes.
And we were there one evening when the moon was rising and the sun was setting, and the seals were sort of crying out to sea, and they sounded just like mermaids.
Wow.
And are believed to be mermaids by the locals.
Yeah.
It was just the most sort of magic and extraordinary.
So you'd be able to see the mermaids from the seals. So you can see the sails from the coast, yeah?
Yes.
So you'd go for a nice walk there, yeah?
And one would go for a walk down there by the sea, at that time of night, just when
As the sun goes down.
the sun is going and the moon is rising.
Great. Okay, lovely. Can I just ask, is there somewhere during this day where you'd see your children and grandchildren? How would you hook up with them? I'd love to mention, because you've got 4 sons, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Mm.
Well, yes, no. Well, I would, no, I'd take them to Rome. I think I'd go with them to Rome.
Okay, great.
With children and grandchildren, and just sort of look at things. You know.
So can I just ask, you've got 4 sons?
Yes.
What's the age range of your sons?
The age range of my sons is between 55 and 30.
And 30.
Yes.
And how many grandchildren have you got?
32, and I've got 6 grandchildren.
6 grandchildren. And Faye, what's the age range for the
And the
children?
age range of them is 6 to the age is 6 to 22.
Great. And you're 83, aren't you?
Yes.
Right, lovely. What would you do in Rome with them to obviously see the sights? Would you buy them all an ice cream or something?
Oh, of course, yes, excellent ice cream. Wonderful ice cream.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, the last thing...
I might have a little return to Venice, to the square in Venice, where you buy wonderful ice cream at incredible prices. But since I'm not worrying about money,
Okay.
we'd all go there. Otherwise, I wouldn't dream of it.
Okay, lovely. So the last thing really would be dinner somewhere. Have you decided where you'd have dinner?
Yes, I think I'd have dinner in a Greek taverna,
Right.
looking out over the sea.
Anywhere in particular in Greece?
I'm not. I think Crete would probably be quite a good place.
Right, lovely. And to eat and drink?
And to eat and drink, we would be having. Because it's sort of Greece, you wouldn't be thinking all that much about the excellence of the food. You'd be thinking about the zoo. About the sea, and the shore, and the moon, and the whole sort of ambience. And you'd be drinking. What do they drink in Greece?
Well, a tax of brandy. Well, you get some champagne, or I don't know.
Yes, no. Oh, I can't remember the name of the normal Retsina.
Oh yes, Retsina.
No, Retsina, which is a bit sort of rash, and we'd be eating moussaka and chips.
Moussaka and chips, lovely.
And chips with mayonnaise.
With béarnaise sauce.
With mayonnaise.
Oh, with mayonnaise.
But
Okay.
you really have to eat chips with all the time.
Okay, great. And would you have all the family as well? Sort of a big party
And
night?
the family would. The family would be there. Yes.
Okay, great. Bit of Greek dancing?
And a bit of Greek dancing. Oh yes.
Okay, great. And where'd you end the day? Back at home, or
Oh, I think I'd be back at home.
is that in Dorset?
I'd be back at home having a bath. Yes.
Really? What, a big scented bath or something?
And having. Well, I sort of don't go for scented baths much.
Yeah.
I'd be reading a book in the bath.
Okay, and you're in Dorset, aren't you?
And I'm in Dorset.
Okay. Lovely. That's a great one to say. Thank you. How about the next question? The temptation you wish you could resist?
Well, what I've said is canapes at a dinner party, at a drinks party.
Yes. Okay. Why? Because you end up eating too many, or?
Because you sort of eat them, and then you've spoiled your dinner, and then and then they're rather strange, peculiar foods you get.
And a real odd mix as well.
Sort of a strange, sort of odd mix, but depending entirely on how much the event provider has decided what menu to give you.
Yes.
And if it's very expensive, you get quail's eggs. And if it's not so expensive, you kind of get, cheese and pineapple.
Yeah, right. Okay, brilliant. How about the book that holds an everlasting resonance?
Well, I think it's Huxley's Brave New World,
Yeah.
which was such a mixture of both science and fiction,
Yeah.
and such a sort of skillful book in the writing, and such an impressive book, because it was so prophetic of a future which we would be living in, which was dependent upon drugs.
Dependent upon drugs, yeah?
Yeah.
And,
although legal drugs in this case, but what the whole society, rather like statins today.
yes. And how long ago did you read that when it came out originally?
And I suppose I read that when I was about 20.
And it really struck you then, did
And
it?
it really struck me then. I mean, it was quite an old book then. It was written in what year did I say?
Sorry?
What year did... Oh, when I was 19, I said.
You read it at 19, yeah.
Well, it was quite an old book then, but oddly enough, sort of in the past, you came across books which had been written in the past, which you tend now only to come across books which were written last week.
Yes. It's written in 1931.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I reread it this year myself. It's an amazing book.
It is a bit sort of... Did you really?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yes.
But oddly enough.
It has its sort of faults, really.
Yeah.
But the whole general principle of the sort of horror of nature.
Yeah. It still stands up, yeah.
And it still does really stand up. And you mix it with 1984, and you get sort of both trends, both the sort of surveillance society, which we get now, mixed up with the kind of drug everyone to keep them happy.
Yes, indeed.
And you get a view of the future.
Exactly. How about the priority activity as the invisible woman? What would you do?
Well, you see, I think that's a sort of impertinence. I wouldn't want to do that. I don't want to pry. I'd rather invent what I've got to pry into.
Right.
So I'd rather sort of take a fictional approach and make it all up.
In what sense, Faye?
Well, I think I'd want to make it all up. I don't want to pry into other people's lives, which seems a cheating.
Yes.
I'd rather invent it.
Rather invent it. But is there something you could do that wouldn't mean pry? You could sit with some wild animals or go swimming with sharks or something that's completely different that when you're safe or...
Well, I'm a very nervous person. I think I would be nervous of the sharks. And I really just like staying at home, actually, really. So I don't mind going about in a chauffeured car, and I don't mind being somewhere without having to get there. It's a very nice idea.
But you wouldn't want to sort of see the secrets of government or something like that, maybe?
No, I'd rather make them up. I'm pretty, one knows pretty much what they're saying. And what they're all saying is what we used to get with Nixon saying on the Watergate tapes. What the real top people are saying is the truth.
Yes.
And it sounds so shocking that our governments and the governments, are not polite to one another and threaten one another, and which they do.
Yeah. So you're not someone that wants to pry or anything like that?
No, I don't want to pry. Yeah. I'd rather make it all up.
Okay. Right, I'm with you.
And there are very few people who will be able to tell you got it wrong.
Yes. Okay. How about the pet hate that makes your hackles rise?
Well, at the moment, it's magpies.
Ah.
Because magpies frighten off all the songbirds, and so you just get these rather ferocious, yappy creatures, and all your little songbirds are sort of frightened off.
And do you try and shoo them away?
So
do you try and shoo them away?
Is, you see, one tends to feed them because they're so good at scavenging. And then, but then they come in rather large numbers because they really like where you are, and then you have to sort of stop putting the food out.
So have you got lots in your garden?
So we have lots in our garden, but fortunately winter is coming and they all go and roost somewhere else. So I don't have to be bothered by them too much. But,
Yes.
But they sort of... It's very odd watching a season of magpies because when they're young, they're sort of like teenagers. When they're small, they're rather nice. And then they grow into these very aggressive sort of teenagers, like great lumping louds. and then they grow into these really mean creatures.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. How about the film you can watch time and time again?
Well, I like Chitty 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 Bang Bang.
Oh, right. Why is that?
Well, because it has it appeals to children, but I suppose also it appeals to me.
Yes.
And it's just very musical and a very sort of simple story, which has been written, which has been made, I think, with a great deal of people who really enjoyed making it. And this comes over.
Did you read that as a child, or when was that? When did that come out?
No, it's a film.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry, Faye. Yes, I got distracted myself.
Yes.
So
Bang Bang.
yes.
And I saw that. No, actually, I used to watch it with my children.
Right.
And I think that is because they also enjoyed it. One enjoys this as well.
Yes. So
I've always found that about films, about sort of special effects films. So if you go and watch them with the boys, it's terribly noisy and bangy, but it's always great fun.
So does that one always remind you of your children, your sons?
So this one reminds me of my children.
Right. How many times do you think you sat through it?
Oh, probably about 6 or 7. But there's not as many times as the Jungle Book, which I really didn't like, but the children absolutely loved.
Did they?
So, each generation of children would sort of see it about 6.
I presume you had to sit through Chitty Chitty Bang Bang through different stages, because your sons were different ages.
Generations.
Yeah. So you must have watched it over a period of like 10 years or so.
Well, quite, even longer.
How many years do you reckon?
Well, I suppose probably about sort of 15 years one had of different generations of children.
Yeah. Lovely.
And my husband has 3 sons as well, so we have 7 boys between us.
Wow. Christmas must be a scream.
So Christmas is a scream, yes it is.
How about the person who's influenced you most?
Well, actually, I think it's my mother, who was an extremely intelligent woman who was a novelist.
Yes.
And a very sort of brave person personally. But she was also extremely moral. So one always sort of out of habit meets deadlines and pays debts and behaves very well on the whole. But she also suggested that everything you enjoyed was either fattening or immoral.
Yeah.
So you had to think very hard before you did anything. you either ate or flirted too much with the wrong people, because if you enjoyed it, it was probably dangerous and probably wrong.
And was that what she taught you then?
And in a way, I think she did. She made one investigate one's actions.
Right. And she was Margaret, wasn't she?
And that was Margaret.
When did she die, Faye?
And she died in, I suppose, about 10 years ago.
Right. How old would she have been?
And she was 94.
94. Wow. Do you still miss her at all?
Oh yes. Oh yes, because she's sort of, she's what made one. She's part of one's life. So
yeah.
It's greatly. And she was very, very funny and very, very witty.
And when you say brave, in what sense?
Well, she was brave in the sense that she decided she was a really early feminist, that she would be indebted to nobody. She would not let, so we tended to live in great poverty because of her principles. But she had principles which were sort of admirable.
Yeah. And did she give you your strength of character?
And so I think she gave one a strength of character, yeah.
Great. How about the figure from history you'd like to buy, a pie and a pint?
You see, that's a very male question.
I created these questions.
Well, you did, you see, and it shows. because if you're a woman, you don't go and, you don't go and buy a pint and a pie with, really. But, and...
a cup of tea and cake.
Rephrase that. I'd quite like to have tea in the garden with William Blake.
Oh, that's a nice choice, yes. Okay, great.
where he heard voices.
What would you ask him?
Well, I'd ask him about piping down the valleys wild.
Sorry?
Well, he did a poem. There was a poem called Piping Down the Valleys Wild. I saw, upon a cloud, I saw a child, and I'd ask him what the child, want to know what the child looked like, and how a valley can be wild. I mean, there are all kinds of things you'd want to know.
Yeah, to discuss his writings and his ideas?
Well, I'd like to discuss the poems.
The poems, yeah. Do you love his work, or is it...
Oh, yes.
In a nutshell, what do you love about it? Just share...
Well, it's just a sort of a mixture of naivety and knowledge and an understanding of... and a sort of... a simplicity of language combined with a very sort of complex and quite angry understanding of the world.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. How about the piece of wisdom you'd pass on to a child?
Oh, never believe a thing you're told.
Right. And why is that?
Well, because people will tell you anything for a quiet life.
Right. So what, make up your own mind?
Yes. Or don't be easily influenced. Because if everybody around you is saying one thing, it isn't necessarily the case.
Yes. Okay, great. And the unlikely interest that engages your curiosity?
Well, I quite like computing. Well, I'm really interested in volcanoes, in hurricanes, in earthquakes, and computer games. I mean, they're not exactly the same. But first thing I do every morning is to look at the progress of the earthquake, of the volcano in Iceland.
Which one's that?
It's called Barda Bunga.
Barda Bunga.
Barda.
Yeah.
Bunga.
Right.
And it really seems to me oddly that the sort of cosmic influence here of bunga parties, which are sort of political,
yes,
and Barda Bunga, the earthquake, as if sort of somehow all things were connected.
Yeah. So you're just completely sort of fascinated by volcanoes?
I'm completely fascinated by watching the rate of fall of the caldera, which is the volcanic crater half a mile under the ice of a glacier in Iceland, and how clever these people are in working out exactly what is going on, and the sort of continuing sort of assessment of the volcanoes which are beginning to subside after 4 months.
So are you drawn to them because of what they're just ancient?
I need to know how many earthquakes they've had and how severe they were, and the first thing I do in the morning is go and check Barda Bunga.
I see. But you just love...
I've even done the news. I want to know.
So you love these natural phenomena, what, because they're just so extraordinary?
Well, because they're so extraordinary, and because they're so uncontrollable.
Yes.
And because sort of, I suppose, somehow one believes that it's God's punishment, like sorting the rubbish will keep the gods from burning the earth up.
Yes.
And if only you sort your rubbish, it'll be a kind of ritual that'll stop it happening.
Right. Wow, brilliant. That's a very unique choice for that answer. And the treasured item you lost, is it the doll?
Yes, I think it's a doll called Panama Polly.
Panama Polly.
Panama Polly, who was a very blonde little doll, which my mother brought me back when she was 5, when she had been to England. When we were in New Zealand, and she went off to England and came. But when she came back finally, and I had no idea who this person was who said she was my mother.
And this is when
she bent over me, and she brought me this little doll called Panama Polly, with blonde hair.
And you were
carried round, which I've had with me because she was so small. I was able to take it on the boat with me when we came back.
And you were 5 at the time, so it's the same time your father gave you that book. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So how long had your mother been away in England?
Well, my mother went away for about a year, I suppose, when I must have been 3, I think, when she went away.
Right.
So she went away. But she didn't tell me she was going away. So, one day she just wasn't there. And I asked my sister where she was. And my sister said, oh, she's gone home. And I thought that was very odd, because I thought where we lived was home. But apparently it was England, which was known as home, with a capital H.
I see. And so you would have been 4 then, as opposed to 5?
I think I was about 3, and then when she came back, I must have been about 4.
Right. And what happened to the doll?
And well, I just had the doll and kept the doll, and the doll is in fact in a painting in the Auckland
the museum. Because I've just been reading about that painting.
Gallery. Yes, and that one of the little dolls there is Panama Polly.
And but when did you lose it?
Well, I don't know. I think I lost it in the last move, or the last 3 moves, or I mean, I tend to move around rather a lot, and somehow she's got lost on the way.
Oh, are you sad about that?
Well, no. Well, it doesn't keep me awake at night.
So how long ago do you think you lost it?
Well, I think I must have lost her about 5 years ago, probably. Well, she's nowhere that I can see.
Right. What a shame. But I presume you absolutely loved that doll. Did you? Did you love that doll?
Well, what?
No. As a child?
Well, childhood used to be very different from childhood now.
Yes.
Nobody really had time to love dolls. I mean, you had a doll. You were lucky to have a doll, and you sort of liked it. But you didn't.
I see.
You didn't really identify with it in a way.
Right. I'm with you. How about the next one? The unending quest that drives you on.
Oh, I just like words. I just like to get the right word and the right sentence in the right book at the right time.
Right. And do you write every day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so it's getting the right words. You have the perfect sentence, or?
Yes, I think. Well, the sentence that actually means what you're trying to get it to say. And if you have to be very particular with words, even tiny little words, like prepositions, or sort of the ins and the outs and the odds and the ons. And they've all got to be right. Because and if you shift one, then the whole sentence shifts.
Right. And you've done 34 novels, is that right? According to your website?
I expect so.
Okay. How long do you write for each day, roughly?
Well, it sort of varies with all the other things I have to do. I mean, there's real life which keeps obtruding. So about 3 or 4 hours one would...
3 or 4?
Probably. But I teach as well, you see, so I've got to stop and do a bit of this.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. How about the poem that touches your soul?
I
hope we're going to have a Blake poem.
Well, I think, can we have a Blake poem?
Yeah, I'd love that, yeah.
And yes, I've got London.
Which one?
It's called London.
Ah.
It's called London. And I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe.
And what does that one mean to you? It obviously moves you.
Yeah. Well, I suppose really just the sort of tragedy of being alive, or the tragedy of city life. City life.
The drudgery of city life.
No, yeah. The tragedy.
Tragedy. Right. And does it sort of sadden you, or?
Well, I don't know. It's quite exhilarating, really.
Right. But it just moved you, didn't it? Just reading it, is that right? Yeah. So did it make you cry, that poem?
Well, it did.
It did, yeah.
Took me really by surprise.
Right. When you say the tragedy of city life, is that what Blake's getting at?
Well, yes, I think he is. It's sort of... Well, it's a tragedy of how people live. I suppose really it's a tragedy of growing old.
Yeah.
Or that you can't be alive without dying. Or the sort of the very conditions in which we live are so.
Yeah.
Mind you, that was sort of, not even Victorian, but where we were. William Blake was. I mean, life was much harder and much tougher for people. But you certainly think when you go on the underground in London that you see what Blake saw, which is marks of weakness, marks of woe.
Yeah. Wonderful. I will look that up for myself as well later.
Yes.
The misapprehension about yourself you wish you could erase. Something that people have a misconception about you.
Oh, yes. What have I got for that? Oh, yes. No, that I'm a happy and successful person, which is a sort of misapprehension. If only because being noticeably unhappy is much better for business. If you're a writer.
Okay, so everyone thinks you are happy and successful.
Everyone thinks I'm happy and successful, and indeed I am. But it's a misapprehension. But it's an unfortunate misapprehension. So I'm not saying it's not true. Simply that to believe it is not necessarily good for business, because people do like their writers to be tragic.
Right.
Or troubled, or depressed, or or suffering from great troubles, and I'm not really.
Right. So, just so I got that right, the misapprehension is that you're happy and successful, but you're saying you actually are happy.
But I actually am. Yes, I actually am, but it's a pity that people think so.
Right. So do you think you'd sell more books if you were more troubled?
I suspect I'd sell many more books if I never wrote a funny line.
So you'd sell more books if you were more troubled.
I would if I showed myself to be more troubled.
Okay, brilliant. And the event that altered the course of your life and character?
Well, I think it was probably meeting my then husband on my birthday in 1961. When I sort of suddenly moved practically overnight from being a sort of struggling unmarried mother to being a woman who lived in a house and worked in advertising and was amongst sort of writers and artists in Primrose Hill.
Yes.
And that was sort of such a sudden change from the other world that it was, it did change everything. And you learned about wine, and you learned about food, and you learned about art, and you learned about all this stuff.
And so was that when you married Ron Weldon?
Yes.
Yes. So, did you obviously divorced?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
And then he died.
Right. So marrying your second...
On the day we were divorced.
On the day you divorced, he died?
Yes.
Oh. And then you married Ron...
Then I married Nick.
But so are you talking about your marriage to Ron? That was 1961.
Yes.
So that is... He introduced you to that world of literature and all that, did he?
And we got married in 63, I think.
So it was meeting him in 1961.
Yeah.
Well, where did you meet him?
At a party.
At a party?
Yes.
So that's what began to change your life then. What did he do?
Well, he was an artist.
An artist, right.
And we just went straight home and stayed the night, and that was it.
And before that, Faye, you were struggling...
And before that, I was a struggling unmarried mother, though I had a job in advertising and was beginning to sort of pull myself
Yes. So had you separated from Mr. Bateman before?
Yes.
Right, I'm with you. Okay, so that really transformed your whole family life and career.
Yes.
I'm with you. Excellent. And the crime you'd commit, knowing you could get away with it?
Well, I think I'd sort of interfere with with the hole in the world, and so that the money just sort of poured out into the street, and everyone could just come and take it all. I think that would be really worthwhile.
Right.
But obviously illegal.
Okay, so people could get what they like.
I wrote a novel about it called Darcy's Utopia.
Darcy's Utopia, yeah?
Darcy's Utopia. When the new economists decided the thing to do was to increase the flow of money, and you would do it simply by literally doing it. Well, it's the same thing as qualitative easing, is it not? Quantitative easing.
Yes.
Is that you just make endless supplies of money available, but they never made it available to people, just as sort of, other bankers.
Yes, I'm with you. Right. Brilliant. And the song that means most?
And the song, I think, is Buffy St. Marie's Little Wheel Spin and Spin.
Sorry, what's the title?
Little Wheel Spin and Spin.
Little Wheel Spin and Spin.
Little Wheel Spin and Spin.
And who sung that?
And it's Buffy St. Marie. Buffy.
Yeah.
Sainte.
Yeah.
New word Buffy, Buffy. She's a Red Indian, or an Indian, a Native American singer.
Okay.
And has an absolutely amazing voice, and is well worth listening to.
Well, what does it remind you of, or what does it mean to you?
Wheels, well, it's a kind of big wheel turn around. Well, it's just a sort of vision of fate and people.
A vision of fate?
Fate and people.
Yeah.
Fate and the people who are sort of caught up in this sort of endless regression through time and by inspiration, by inference, other incarnations.
So it's quite a profound song.
So it is really a profound song, yes.
Right. And you love it because what? Of its
I
depth?
don't know why, but whenever I'm asked I'm asked the question, or to do my favourite song on whatever it is, then I always say that one, because it sort of works, and it's quite interesting.
Does it make you? Do you sing along to it? Does it make you want to sing? Does it make you want to cry? Or
no, it just makes me want to get on with the programme and get on with some writing.
Right, I'm with you. How about the happiest moment you'll cherish forever?
Well, I think it was after the family all came to lunch in a Chinese restaurant after I got the CBE, and it was just very nice.
And what year was that?
And that was 2001.
And which Chinese did you go
The
to?
Chinese restaurant was in Baker Street.
Right. Do you love Chinese food then?
Not particularly.
So what did that day mean to you then, and getting that award?
Well, it's a bit of acknowledgement, which is always very nice.
Bit of a what, sorry?
A bit of acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement, yes.
Acknowledgement, which
Yes.
is always very nice. And, and it was just, and a couple of the children came, because you can't ask many, and you all sit in little gold chairs, and it's like school prize day. You got a prize.
And who gave it to you?
The Queen.
Oh, wow. What did she say? Can you remember?
She said, are you you're the one who writes television plays? And I said, as I remember, I write anything they pay me to, ma'am.
Right. Madam or ma'am?
Really not quite the right answer.
Did she smile?
Yes, got she smile.
Right. Do you call her ma'am or madam?
Ma'am.
Ma'am, yeah. Brilliant. And the saddest day, Faye?
And the saddest day. Well, I don't think I'm going to tell you.
Please.
No.
Well, can you tell me one of them then? Is it just too emotional, too raw?
Well, yes, because I think in a way, happiest days are fine, but saddest days are rather personal.
Yeah. But I'm the inquisitive type. Is there...
Probably when my sister died.
Right. I did wonder about that because she was 39, wasn't she?
Yes, she was, yes.
What do you remember of that?
No, well, that I'm not going to tell you.
I see. Well, maybe can you tell me what Jane was like to you, what she meant to you?
She was very beautiful.
Yeah.
And very poetic.
Right. And was she, you know,
She had 3 children.
Yeah. I presume it was...
yes.
Did you help bring them up after that?
Well, I helped, yes.
Yeah. And what you can't tell me what you went through then emotionally, because it must have been impossibly hard.
Well, I think actually when a sibling dies, it's worse than when a parent dies, because it's so much part of you, and you were brought up very closely together, and it's sort of just like a part of you going. You have to go on. And half, you know, if you're 2 of you, you lose a half of yourself. If you're 3 of you, you lose a third of yourself.
Yeah.
And you know, it really, I think, affects your whole view of the world, or what is going to happen next, oddly enough, because anything might.
Yeah. She was only 2 years older than you, is it? Yeah. Right. I won't pry any further.
That's enough.
Okay. Thank you. The unfulfilled ambition that continues to haunt you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I want to run a large manufacturing company.
Right. Making what?
Well, I always used to think it was the mill, but I think this was from a lot of early reading of books about mill factories and the workers and the management and the whole sort of sense of Victorian industry and what was trouble at mill sort of stuff. And really, I thought it was such a wonderful sort of life.
So what would you like? A large manufacturing company making what?
Oh, bicycles.
Bicycles. But why is that, Faye?
Well, because they've sort of got lots of components and they've all got to fit together, and the sort of the whole manufacturing business is very complicated.
So does it intrigue you because it's so completely different to what you do?
Well, it's so completely different to what I'm doing, but I do think, you know, because the more you sort of read and see of people making things, it seems to be, or you watch The Apprentice, and you can see the sort of the folly of people's behaviour. Well, I suppose, sort of in a way, I'd be, what's his name? What's the name of the man who does it?
Alan Sugar.
Alan Sugar. So one could see oneself as a sort of, as Alan Sugar. One wants to be Alan Sugar's assistant, but I know, I want to be Alan Sugar.
I see what you mean. So you want to be a tycoon that runs a really massive business.
I want to be a tycoon running a sort of a business that makes something actually physical.
Yes.
And gets it made and delivered and sold, and the whole sort of thing seems to me from sort of beginning to end. Well, I suppose in a way it's rather like writing a novel.
Yes, I see.
Just
but it's
words on paper, and
I see.
It ends up as a book.
Right, I'm with you. Okay, excellent. Something really quite tangible that's beyond something creative.
Yes.
Something cynical that makes lots of money. How about the philosophy that underpins your life?
Oh, I suppose it's do unto others.
Right. What's your translation?
You, or Mrs. Do as you would be done by.
And what's your translation of that? In the sense, what goes around comes around, or?
Well, I suppose it's what goes around. Yes, what goes around comes around. Yes, I think very much so.
So it's important to be good to others, yeah?
Yeah. Well, to be able to control yourself well enough to be good to others.
Yeah. Okay, great. And the order of service at your funeral? He says in a cheerful voice.
Well, I think I'll do sort of traditional book of 1652 Book of Common Prayer.
Mm.
And then I'd rather like, but with sailing by.
What's sailing by?
From when the World Service, when Radio 4 turns to the World Service at 1 o'clock in the morning, they always play Sailing By.
Right.
And it's a rather traditional and dreary tune, but it marks the sort of the change from one state to another, and it always seemed to me, and it's just after the shipping news forecast and sailing by, they play, and it always just seems to me to mark a transition, which I would see from death to life.
I see.
So you might as well do that, because it's so silly.
Yes, lovely. Quite quirky.
Yes.
Any,
well, it should be quite comforting to people.
Yes. Would you have a church, church thing?
Yes, but probably with church service, but probably a funeral, an open-air funeral.
What, like in the country?
Like in the country, which they do, and they have service funerals in funeral services out of doors, and then people go and bury a coffin in the ground, and it's much more. And a cardboard coffin rather than a heavy.
Okay.
There's a heavy one, because having been to those funerals, they're so much more cheerful than funerals where people are put in these great heavy boxes for the worms to chew away at.
Oh dear. So would you be buried or cremated, or?
So I think I'd be buried.
And do you know where? Have you got a place, a churchyard, or? Well,
yes, and there's a churchyard where I go to church, which is in a little country, very old country church in Dorset.
Right.
Which is a very nice bit of landscape.
Overlooking what the?
Overlooking
Jurassic.
Actually, it's next door, oddly enough, to a chicken farm, to a turkey farm. So the services are always sort of interrupted by this sort of really cheerful sort of cawing and crowing and
oh wow!
Noisy.
Not at this time of year, Faye.
No. Oh no, they're very active at this time of year, I'm afraid, because the turkeys are coming to an end. You see?
Yes.
So they're noisiest now.
Right. Okay. Lovely.
You better not put that in.
No. Okay. Yes, I won't put that in then. Would there be a wake of some kind, a party, or?
Well,
you just want people to stay.
Be there. Yes, I would think so, but I don't dwell on that. It's nothing to do with me. But I wouldn't want people to be miserable or too unhappy.
I'm with you.
But it'll be their turn soon enough.
The last one. How about the way you want to be remembered?
No, I'd written down, oh, her, didn't she die, or something.
Right. Meaning?
Well, I don't know. Oh, her, didn't she die, or something. I mean, if you're going to be remembered, that'd be quite a way to do it. I mean, you'd be remembered as somebody, but then nobody could remember who.
Yes. Okay, but obviously, yeah. So it's not something simple as in terms of for my writing or for X, Y, Z. It's just her. Didn't she die?
Didn't she die or something? Yeah, no, I think that's really good.
Yeah, lovely. Because you don't think it's that important to be remembered by the sound of it?
No. Why? I mean, no, not really. No.
Okay.
No, I suppose. Well, I don't know. I'd have to think about it, have to have due notice of that.
No, I like that answer, Faye. It's really quirky and original. I couldn't convince you to help me with an answer for the Invisible Woman, what you'd do, because my editor is loath with elliptical answers. She has a complete sense of humour failure.
Oh, Invisible Woman. What
yes.
would I do as an Invisible Woman?
Is there someone you would torment for a moment, or...?
No, I don't want to torment anybody. I think in a way one could sort of go into the dressing room at Selfridges and sort of watch people.
Yeah.
But you see, you could make that up just as well.
Yes.
Because you more or less know what people do, and you know what you do, and you know what they do. So, so to be an invisible woman, perhaps you just watch yourself.
Mm.
And see how you behaved, or if you could see how you appeared to other people. Otherwise, you'll have to look at the world from the outside, from the inside out. But you'll be looking at yourself from the outside.
Yeah. Could it work, Faye, if you wanted to be, inside a hurricane without being hurt, so you could actually witness a hurricane?
I'd love to witness a hurricane. Yes, I would.
How about that? Because that could be quite original.
Yes, that'll be all right. That'll be fine.
Actually,
I'd like to sort of watch the hurricane, because people can't really film it, because, the cameras blow away. So you never really sort of get it, do you?
So you could actually have a real
Or you get people bending down as the wind gets stronger.
Yeah, so you'd have an absolute first close-up of a hurricane without...
have a close-up of a hurricane.
Yeah, so you're quite fascinated by hurricanes, yeah?
Yes, or indeed of volcanoes without getting hurt.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Can we do that one?
So, yes, we can do that.
The hurricanes, yeah. I just think otherwise they'd just say, look.
Yes.
Yeah.
You didn't get that one and then blame you.
Blame me. Sack me. It'll all be over.
Yes.
Oh dear. Faye, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you very much.
Not at all. Now, but you're going to be able to show me what you've written.
Yes, I'll do that.
Will you really do that?
Yes, I will. I promise that to Nick.
I won't change anything I don't have to, but just a sort of factual things.
Yeah, definitely.
Please do, and I'll get it back to you within the hour.
Yes.
If you do that.
I probably won't be writing this. I won't be writing this till next week, but I promise that to Nick. So I'll send you the long edit. Yeah.
So do that, and then if anything is actually wrong or is going to upset my publishers or my family too much, I might make a change or two, but it wouldn't be anything drastic.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to work with you to make sure it's how you like it.
Yeah.
And Faye, what do you want for the plug?
Nick's on the phone upstairs.
You can email me that.
Can he email it to you?
Yes, you can.
Just check that.
Yeah, you can. We'll do that.
Okay,
great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll be in touch next week. Okay.
Bye.
Bye, Faye.